So how are you going to get your kids to read this summer? You already know that reading is really good for them. It increases their critical thinking skills. It helps them to have better vocabularies. It helps them to be more imaginative, makes them more confident. All of these things you already know. You know it's good for them, or you probably wouldn't be watching this video. What you need now is to know, how do I get my kids to know that it's good for them? Well, but the fact is, they probably don't need to know that it's good for them. They just need to know that they enjoy it. They need to know that reading isn't a chore. It is a pleasant experience. It's a privilege to be able to read. So let me share with you, I have raised 3 children, and I have been a literacy tutor for many children. Let me share with you some of the little things that I have picked up along the way that have made reading just that, something that is fun for kids and not a drudgery. The first thing may seem a little contrary to what we've always heard, and that is to watch the movie first. We usually hear it the other way around, read the book and then watch the movie. But I remember when my son was first getting into the Harry Potter books, and he wanted so badly to read those books, but he struggled with the sounds of the names. He was, Hermione, he was like Hermione, but he had not seen the movies. So we actually let him watch that first Harry Potter movie, and once he became familiar with the characters and the vocabulary and the language of it, it made reading the books so much easier, and he poured through the Harry Potter series. And in the same way, after he watched all of the Indiana Jones movies and loved them, he wanted to read all of the Indiana Jones books, and he just would stay up late at night during the summer reading Indiana Jones books. And that kind of brings me to the second thing, and that is to get your kids involved in a series. We all like that. I think about even watching shows, you get involved in something because you connect with the characters and you begin to feel like they are actually your friends. And that is the same thing that happens in a book. I, as a kid, loved the Anne of Green Gables books. I loved Anne. I connected with her. Well, kids, the same thing. My second son fell in love with the series, The Ranger's Apprentice by John Flanagan. And I'll never forget, we kind of read those books at the same time. I read them on my own and he read them on his own, and it was a lot of fun because it gave us something to talk about. And he would come in and say, "Can you believe that this happened in this book?" And I remember laying in my bed at night and I could hear him in the next room just chuckling and laughing because of something that had happened in the book, and he'd want to talk about it. But he is the type of kid who forms bonds with people pretty quickly. He takes his relationships seriously, and I find that kind of spills over into his reading as well. He enjoys when he knows the characters. And so a series works really, really well for him. I mentioned that we read those books at the same time, not like, again, I didn't read them out loud to him. But getting involved with your kids' reading, making it a family thing, is also a very critical thing. I always have told my kids, even as they've gotten older, I guess that's looked different at different times in their lives. There have been plenty of times, even when they were older, that we sat down and I read aloud to them, or we would just be reading the same book at the same time, or we would have a time set aside in the evening where we all had books and we read. And it hasn't been the same. We might do something for a couple of months and switch it up and do something different. But I always tell my kids, this time is for me. We do a lot of things for you. But this is for me. This is something I treasure. I love reading with you. I love reading to you. I love reading beside you. I love talking about books with you. And somehow they honor that. They always have been able to say, okay, we'll do this for Mom, but I think they always really enjoyed the books as well. Reading is very social, and which is one reason that for book clubs, a lot of people, you may participate in a book club yourself, maybe starting a book club at home for your children or your kids would be something that you could do. Or talk with some other moms and say, what if we took turns hosting book clubs at our house and let the kids choose the books and get together and read them? I remember when my daughter was younger, the American Girls series was real popular, and a lot of people had book clubs for that, and they would read the same American Girl books, and then they would come together and do some activities related to whatever they had read and talk about the book. It doesn't have to be a series, but anything that the kids are reading, let them read it on their own and then come together and talk about it and turn it into a social event. Along that same lines, even if you're not having a book club, what about a book swap with your kids where you have a little gathering at your house and say, everybody bring a book that you have read, that you enjoyed, and you can share with everybody what you enjoyed about that book. Or maybe you know somebody specific who would like to read that book, and you can switch them up. And one kid can say, hey, I read this book, maybe I think you would really like it. And they can trade books around. It makes a big difference when a friend recommends a book as opposed to when we recommend books. And speaking of recommending books, how about giving them a list of banned books? Boy, there's nothing more that'll get their wheels kind of turning than to realize these are books that have been actually banned. Maybe you could read this and tell me why you think it was banned. Talk about improving critical thinking skills. And of course, in that case, you probably would want to read the book as well so that you could talk about it. But a lot of kids, just saying that something is forbidden is a good reason to actually do it or to read it, because somebody thought that it shouldn't be read. For younger kids, making the library a part of your weekly routine during the summer. I know that the library has all kinds of activities going on during the summer. We used to go to the library every week and participate in the activities, and my children always looked forward to it and always loved it. And just the idea of walking in and seeing all those books. And have you ever noticed that a library has a certain smell that just, just to walk in there and be able to pick out any book that you want? For a lot of kids, reading is not going to be something that just they naturally gravitate towards. They're not going to naturally think, oh, I have some free time. What am I going to do? In fact, I would say probably most kids would be that way. So it probably is important to actually set aside a little bit of time each day for reading. You've always heard the mantra, work hard, play hard. And that was something that we always said with our kids. When it's time to work, we're going to work hard. And when it's time to play, we're going to play hard and we're going to have a good time. But why not add in read hard and set aside some time? Maybe it would be after lunch each day, and make it a pleasant experience. Again, we want our kids to believe that reading is a pleasurable activity, that it's a privilege to be able to do it. Small children love to have their parents read to them, but a lot of that is simply because they get to crawl up in your lap and you get to snuggle with them, and it brings back very pleasant feelings for them. Well, our older children may not crawl up in our laps, probably they're not, and yet we want the experience of reading to feel very pleasant. So why not just say, this is not a chore. This is a time for us to just let down and rest. We've been busy. Maybe it's a time to have a special drink or a sip of something that you don't know, like lemonade or something that you don't have just any time, and so that it comes back to you as you think about reading. You have very pleasant associations with it. And then the last thing I would say is, if your kid is not just an active reader, and particularly if they are in high school, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I did everything when my children were small. I mean, I was one of those moms, like seriously, who read to my children when I was pregnant, and who took books to the hospital to read when they were newborns. My parents and in-laws thought I was crazy, but I did all the things to try to help my children to become readers. And then when my sons were in high school, they didn't read at all. And I thought, what on earth? I mean, I did everything and they don't read. But now that they are out of high school and they're in their adult lives, they enjoy reading. They make a habit habit of reading. They really like to read. Now, my daughter, she's kind of going through, she's in high school now, and reading is not something that she makes a priority, but I'm telling myself she has a history of reading as a child, and one day she will come back to it. So if you have high schoolers or children who you think, why won't they read? Then, don't fret about it too much. Chances are, if you have instilled in them the desire to read and the skills for reading, they'll come back to it. So if this is the first time you've ever watched one of my videos, my name is Michelle, and this is the first time I've made a video like this. I thought it would be fun to try something different. I actually have a reading goal this year of reading 1 book a week. So I'm reading 52 books this year. I've never made any kind of a goal like that either. But that's what my channel is about. And if you are interested, each week on Sunday, I post a video about whatever book I have read this week. I would love for you to check out some of those videos to maybe get some ideas for your own personal reading. And whether or not you choose to do that, I want you to know that I appreciate you joining me today, to spending your time with me. And I hope that you have a wonderful summer reading with your family and reading on your own. And I look forward to possibly seeing you in a future video. Thanks a lot.